Hi, welcome to Our Small Table. Today's dish is something a little bit special. We're making cheese ramekins, which come from a vintage Cooking for Two cookbook that was published in 1909, which I received at Christmas this past year. I have a few things I need to say about this recipe, so I'm going to go ahead and grate the cheese while I'm talking about it. The author of this particular book is Janet Mackenzie Hill. She's actually an interesting woman. She went back to school about the age of 40 at the Boston Cooking School. She learned under Fannie Farmer, and that's part of why I can still use her cookbook today, because it has actual measurements and instructions, just like a recipe that we know today. However, it does not have all of the information that I need, because she used a different kind of oven, and so the recipe, as it's written, calls for baking in a moderate oven, doesn't say how long to bake it, and doesn't say what the recipe is supposed to look like when it's finished. Did a little bit of research, and cheese ramekins are very similar to a cheese souffle, but much, much easier to make. They will rise like a souffle, they will fall like a souffle, so they need to be served very quickly after being finished. And the inside will have the curds that a souffle has. The version of the recipe that we're using can be found at the link in the video description. I have been a little bit experimental. I'm assuming that a moderate oven is about 350 degrees, so we've got one preheating right now. It also calls for a bain-marie water bath. We are going to do that, even though that's usually something that's reserved for a creme brulee and not for a souffle. Almost finished with the cheese here, and all of our other ingredients have been pre-measured. I'm also going to add one little thing that's not in the recipe, but I'm only going to add it to one of the two ramekins, so you can make your choice of whether you want to do it or not. She also in the recipe calls for factory cheese. Up until the late 1800s, most cheese was gotten directly from the dairy, which meant it was made entirely from the milk of that dairy's cattle. Then one particular family, I believe it's the Wallaces, but don't quote me on that, started combining the milk from multiple dairies, and the cheese could therefore taste the same every single time that you bought it, which is how we have our cheese today in most cases, and that was factory cheese. I'm using sharp cheddar. You could use a block of American cheese, you could use Cheshire if you can access it. I just thought that sharp cheddar would go best here. It's a little bit difficult to tell, but I have buttered two ramekins, and for one of them, this is the part that is not in the recipe, I'm going to add some freshly shredded Parmesan and just move it around the sides so it sticks to the butter. I found in testing the recipe that I enjoyed the finished product with a little bit of Parmesan on top of it, so we'll do this to get a little bit of cheddar, or pardon me, Parmesan all the way through. We'll set that aside. We have melted butter. This is both the salt and the paprika. Breadcrumbs, and again I'm using my own breadcrumbs, any opportunity I can get, and that cheese that we just shredded. We'll go ahead and combine those as best as we can. My main goal here is to try and get the butter distributed, because it will of course clump up with the breadcrumbs. take our beaten egg and add the milk. I'm just going to beat them together. I found in testing that the recipe came out the best if I'd really given it a good beating here. And then we are simply going to combine the two. The next step is going to be putting this into the ramekins, but before I do that, the ramekins are sitting in an oven-safe casserole dish that I have placed a paper towel. You can also use a flour sack kitchen towel, a tea towel. I use paper towel because I'm using a small casserole dish. It's Pyrex, so it's fine. And I put the paper in so that the ramekins will not slip when I'm taking them in and out of the oven, because it is the most dangerous moment. And we will go ahead and very carefully portion this between the two. As evenly as possible, trying not to make a mess. Try to get as much of that good stuff out of the bowl as I can. I have set to the side, which I will be grabbing in just a moment. Two cups of hot water. 2 cups is the right amount for this casserole dish. May not be the right amount for yours. And I'm pouring it along the side. And I'm only going to add about the first cup right now to demonstrate what we're going to do. Normally I would do the whole thing, add the water when it's in the oven, because it's safer. Because this is hot water, and as you're taking it in and out of the oven, it's very easy to splash yourself. So this is going into the preheated 350-degree oven. Once it's set on the rack, I'll add the rest of the hot water, close up the door, and I'll be back when this is baked. So here's the finished product. I need to serve it very quickly because it's already deflating, so you serve it very hot. In my smaller ramekins, it rises nicely above the level of the edge. These are slightly larger, so it won't get that high. You have to be very careful removing them from the oven because remember that they are inside of simmering water. So I pull the rack forward and then use spring-loaded tongs to move this ramekin onto a hot pad and then move it out and then get the second one and take the casserole dish full of water out of the oven later when it's cooled off. It doesn't need to come out immediately. It can stay there for hours if it needs to. Thanks for joining me at Our Small Table. Next time we're making bacon cream cheese sandwiches. Remember to check out the website, which is linked in the description, and you can come looking for me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. You can find me in all sorts of places. Our Small Table. Thank you.